50 years ago, Boston's South End was a center of conflict over urban renewal. The changes paved the way for gentrification, but there were also victories for some of the people most vulnerable to displacement. One of these was the affordable housing units owned and managed by Tenants Development Corporation. Along with recently marking its 50th anniversary, the TDC plans some new development, a community center at Tremont and Lenox Streets. To tell us about the history and the new project is the TDC's Corporate and Community Relations Manager, Arnesse Brown. Also joining us is the peer leader and coordinator, Isaiah DaSilva. Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
I want to start with Arnesse about the history here. Talk about how did the tenants pull this off?
So one of the things about tenants development, we are very historical. The South End was an incubator for community activism. Our founder was a female. She was from Tennessee, Mary Longley, and she would just walk around. There were things that she would do with other women of the South End during that time. They would just walk around and make sure that the young people were safe. And she kept looking at housing, and she had a very simple vision. She felt strongly that people deserved safe, clean, and affordable housing, and that spearheaded one of the most well-known and instrumental landmark cases. Tenants Development Corporation is the first housing organization in the nation to win a case in a tenant versus landlord dispute on the side of a tenant, using a very interesting Jewish process. It's the Rabbinical Court of Judaism, and it's Bet Din. And it's interesting, that case was the first time that that particular Jewish process had been used for social justice. It spearheaded tenants' rights across the country. It changed tenant rights and regulations and laws. Other housing organizations use it. We help Via Victoria and other housing developments get established. The other thing about tenants development is we're unique in that we own what we call scattered site properties. So we own brownstones or row houses. We also own the brownstone that Dr. Martin Luther King lived on when he was a PhD student at Boston University at 397 Mass Ave. We were the first housing organization in the nation to receive federal funding from HUD. And again, here we are. Through gentrification, the South End has changed. I'm an old South Ender. And here we are still alive, still growing. And so we're very proud of our history as it was used by other law schools. It was a case that people were fascinated about. A lot of Jewish organizations were excited because it was the first time they'd used this process for social justice, which spearheaded other social justice actions. And so we're still here.
Isaiah, you're a younger South Ender. You grew
Yes.
up hearing some of this history. How did you feel when people explained to you how this worked out?
Well, for me, I grew up in the South End. I've been here for 20 years. And just growing up, I realized that there were a lot of changes going on based on mostly gentrification. You notice that certain things were being taken down and they're putting up new luxury apartments. And it's not unknown. You know the type of people that can afford these, and you know it's the people around you that can't really afford it. So growing up, it's amazing to be a part of Tenants Development Corporation because the history behind it, and then the fact that we're trying to strive and move forward and not allow certain things to beat us down.
Well, part of the mission is to help the younger people, maybe South End residents in the future. What are you doing as a peer leader?
So I'm the peer leader coordinator, and our mission for the peer leader program is to help teens and young adults to take on that leadership role. So we do that through various workshops. We've contacted other companies and resources. We bring in financial literacy.
Another thing here is that you're trying to build a community center. You've been operating for a number of years, doing these services to the community. So explain the reason for your own space to carry on.
As many may know, United South End Settlements has decided to sell the historical Harriet Tubman House, and that is actually our headquarters. We were born at United South End Settlements in 1968. Actually, 48 Rutland Street was our first headquarters. And so when we found out at the potential sale of the Harriet Tubman, again, Tenants Development is an organization. We have over 50 staff. We have close to 500 units. We have all types of programs, ballet, martial arts, hip hop, technology, fair food, senior services programs. We also took over United Sultan Settlement Senior Services Program. And so at that point, we were at a loss for words, because to be part of gentrification again in 2019 and to be displaced by the very organization that you were born at, I think shocked us at first, but then we had to move to action. We started looking at where in the South End could we move. We contacted City of Boston about a small parcel on Lenox Street, went through a community process, and we now have temporary designation. So we're in the middle of looking at designing it, building another community center, and serving not only our youth, but the youth of Lenox and any other youth who are underserved. As everyone knows, the South End is unique in that it has a very large affluent population, but it is also one of the neighborhoods that has the largest concentration of affordable housing. And I always talk about changing the name from affordable housing to realistic housing because, one of the things that I see is you have young people who are just looking for apartments that they can afford. You get out of college, you're looking for a place to live. And so affordable housing, I guarantee some of my residents are paying more than I pay for my mortgage. So that's how we started to look at, okay, well, now what do we do? And looking at building a community center.
This is BNN News. We're talking with Arnesse Brown and Isaiah DaSilva from the Tenants Development Corporation. Isaiah, when you were growing up in the South End, were you taking part in some of these programs yourself as a teen?
Yes, I actually joined the peer leadership program when I was 16, and it was the summer course. So I was placed to work with the maintenance group. So what we had done was the youth could work with maintenance, they could work in the office, or they could also work at daycare for the youths.
What did you get from that?
From the summer program, it was mostly, I learned the responsibility. It was early morning shifts, and as a teen during the summer, getting up wasn't the easiest thing to do. So personally, kind of built this willpower to kind of go after what I want.
It's not easy to get up, but at the end of the day, you could come home saying, I'm making money, I'm like an adult. Isn't that part of it too?
Yeah. The great part was that I was able to kind of be independent with my money and kind of learn how to manage it.
Arnesse, why is this so important for young people growing up? Because they want to be able to live in a neighborhood like this in the future. What about that?
Well, it's interesting. As an old South Ender, I grew up in the most diverse family in the South End. My dad was like a mix of German, Jewish, and Black. I had different cousins, Chinese, white, Black, you name it, we had it. And my dad always said, where else but the South End could a family like ours grow up? And at the time, we had a number of homes and a business. And when you talk to people about the South End, especially if you talk to kids who grew up in the South End, they talk about the advantage of growing up in such a diverse community and that we had friends. I think about my friend Kate Shannon, who is now in Hawaii, Irish. Her dad was a doctor. She sees my mom as her mom. She and I still contact each other. And she talks about, I may be in Hawaii, but I'll always be a South End. So I think a South Ender, you're exposed to a lot of different programs because, again, that neighborhood was an incubator for community activism and all types of programs. I sit on the board of YES, which is Youth Enrichment Services. It's the ski program. You had access to some of the best programs, SNAP, ABCD, the summer jobs. And so it's so important that we continue to carry on that legacy, especially for our founder, Mary Longley. As kids was her joy. She wanted to make sure that kids had resources, that kids could join different programs, learn different things, be exposed to a different type of life. And so it's still important, even in 2019, that we continue to offer the services that I grew up on, that my sisters grew up on, and we're all successful. And I think being in a neighborhood with different types of people only added to that strength.
Isaiah, I'm sure there are probably some other young people out in this neighborhood who might want to get involved in your programs. Is there any way they can follow up on that?
Yes, they can either come to the USIS building located at 566 Columbus Ave and go to the Resident Services office to get an application. And we're also having a community block party, Mary Longley's National Night Out, and we're going to have flyers there that are available to take home.
And finally, Arnesse, anything else you want to say about that block party that's coming up?
Yes. So the block party was started on Wellington Street, and it was paying homage to the old school block parties that used to happen in the South End, like in the 60s and 70s, where everybody would just, neighbors would just come out, they would bring food, music. And we started our block party about 10 years ago. We would attract 600 people on Wellington Street. Last year, we moved it to Sparrow Park because it was our 50th anniversary. We attracted 1,700 people. We allow different community organizations, they get a table. It's their opportunity to showcase what programs, what services they offer. We have a senior area because the seniors love to dance. And so it's an opportunity. We use Big Pig Barbecue, which was started by a bunch of guys who were in college. They loved barbecue and they turned it into a business. And so it's TDC's way of giving back to the community, but also paying homage to the old school block parties that took place in the 60s and 70s on Wellington Street. And we welcome everyone.
Thank you both very much. Arnesse Brown and Isaiah DaSilva from Tenants Development Corporation.